The Trump administration has released a new public charge rule making it easier to reject immigrants. So I don't bear the lead. Trump's new rule basically says if someone who wants to come here or who wants to apply for a green card seems likely to become a public charge, meaning they will be supported by the state, they can be denied for that reason. So for the longest time, public charge wasn't really defined well. That's my understanding legally. And so now they're essentially the executive branch is defining what that means. And they're saying, if you're going to come to the U.S. and you're going to then receive public benefits, like we're not going to let you stay if we think that will be the case. There's a really good argument for this. We cannot be a country that continually brings in people who then drain the welfare system we have in place. I, for one, am on the left on this issue. I believe that we need welfare programs, we need unemployment, we need Medicaid, Medicare, etc. I do think we have a problem with putting Band-Aids over festering bandages. That's kind of the way I describe it. So let me give you the quick analogy. The problem with our system in government is that we have a wound on our country, homelessness, unemployment. So we put a Band-Aid on that. That's the right thing to do, in my opinion. But eventually you got to pull the Band-Aid off and clean the wound and then put a new Band-Aid on. Instead, what we do is we just keep slapping new Band-Aids over the festering bandage, and it's just becoming a filthy, disgusting mess. Okay? Government programs can work, but they have to have a circumstance to where they can be ended and fixed. Instead, what we keep doing is we keep building and building upon bad systems, resulting in bad futures. So here's the thing. I don't believe, let me just stress, I did consult my milquetoast fence sitter handbook to determine whether or not I was going to be too far left or too far right on the issue. I'm kidding, by the way, but no, I'm going to be a centrist on the issue. I think Trump makes a good point. Obviously, the left is now claiming Trump wants to just get rid of immigrants in general. I think there's a consideration here about the U.S. budget. And if you're someone like me who has always been rather socially liberal and thinks we need unemployment programs, we need food stamps, you certainly can't maintain that by bringing in people who are likely to end up on those systems and not paying into them. So it is a big challenge. However, I have to admit, this definitely seems like Trump is making a play to restrict immigration in general, of which, you're going to hear, I'm going to give you my straight opinion. The left is screaming it's white nationalism. I'm seeing the posts from people say Trump is just trying to make this country white. No, listen, Trump, this country is between 61 and 67% white. There's already a lot of not white people here. It's obvious Trump is a hardcore nationalist. He is trying to secure our borders. I think he's trying to get us off this like global police stage, I don't know if he's actually going to do it or if I trust him to actually do it. But it definitely seems like Trump is trying to, batten down the hatches and secure America. When I look at this, I don't see a president who hates immigrants. I see a president who is more just Republican, balance the budget, make sure we have more money going in than going out, secure our borders, kind of lock things down. It doesn't mean he's racist. It means he's Americanicist. He's a nationalist. A lot of people have been pushing in the media that Trump just wants to bring white people here. And I certainly think it's fair to point out a merit-based, at least you can have the perception that merit-based immigration or Trump's statements about S-hole countries, then referencing Norway, is going to result in more white people. But as there was a doctor at a conservative, national conservative event who said, unfortunately, the first world is predominantly white, so you do see that. It doesn't mean Trump is racist. I have no problem if you want to criticize Trump for this. I look at this, I give it the side eye. Like, that's kind of, Trump's faced a lot of criticism to make this move. But I got to say, based on Trump's rhetoric, based on the things he said, I really don't see this as a white nationalist thing. I see it as a general nationalist thing. I don't think Trump cares what color of your skin is. I think he's biased in favor of people who are like hard workers, personal responsibility. And I think that's what this is about. Republicans have always been about personal responsibility. So this rule, in my opinion, is them following suit on balancing the budget and being about personal responsibility. I don't see how this is very different. But again, like I said, I'm rather centrist. I'll still give it the side eye, and I keep an eye on the story. But in the end, Trump is a nationalist. He's an avowed nationalist. He wants the border secure. He wants less migration. I think that's fair to say, especially after this. Let's read the story. Now, before we dive in, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. But the best thing you can do is share this video, because people don't like milquetoast fence sitters who say, well, Trump's a nationalist, so this makes sense, but I don't think he's being racist. I think it's more about him just protecting America. And of course, I'm going to get flack from everybody because of it. With that being said, YouTube is still deranking political commentary from people like me, even from people on the left. So if you share this video, it's the best way to counteract that deranking problem we're facing. But let's read the news. They say, the new public charge rule would link a subject's immigration status to their income and their use of certain public programs. Published in the Federal Register, the rule will officially be released Wednesday and go into effect 60 days later. Ken Cuccinelli, the acting director of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, announced the rule at a press briefing at the White House on Monday morning. He said, "We certainly expect people of any income to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. A poor person can prepare to be self-sufficient. So let's not look at this as the be-all, end-all. But immigration advocacy groups have expressed concerns that it could discourage immigrants from seeking necessary assistance and lead to a chilling effect in minority communities." Whoa, 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 whoa. What does that mean? You saying not white people are poor? Joe Biden made that mistake recently. Let's not play this game. I don't know who they're quoting here, but the idea that simply because you're a minority means you're poor, or let me just stress this, that's triggering to me. I am triggered. The idea that you're going to say minority communities are somehow more likely to seek public assistance? Excuse me? I'm from a minority community, from a mixed race family with mixed race friends. I don't take kindly to have it being implied that marginalized groups are more likely to go on public assistance. I will add, in my life, I have been on public assistance. I'm being somewhat facetious. I'm just trying to point out, they're the ones accusing Trump of being racist, yet the National Immigration Law Center is saying that minority communities will be impacted by this. I mean, sure, but what are you implying? Minority communities are dependent on public services? You know what, man? That's why I hate the identitarian game, okay? I don't care what color your skin is, or why you would insinuate this. Joe Biden recently said that poor people are just as good as white people or something, and he got slammed for it and had to apologize. What do you think this is saying? Why do you think Joe Biden would say something like that? And they call Trump the racist? I think Trump is a merit-cist, right? Okay, merit-cist, meaning I think Trump's the kind of person that will toss you out into the weeds if you're not producing. That's the kind of person he comes off as. And that's the stories I heard about him. I've heard stories from former employees that if you work hard, he hooks you up. I've heard stories from people at Trump Tower that he walked down one day and handed out $100 bills to his staff, like, thanks for everything you're doing, here's a bunch of money. And I've heard stories that if you don't produce and you're lazy, he says GTFO. And this sounds like exactly what Trump's personality is. Let's read. They say, quote, "It will have a dire humanitarian impact, forcing some families to forego critical life-saving healthcare and nutrition. The damage will be felt for decades to come. The rule defines the term public charge in the Immigration and Nationality Act, which gives the Department of Homeland Security authority to deny applicants green cards, visas, or entry into the U.S. If there is a risk, they will become public charges." I want to push back on the racist thing too, okay? I have a friend who is in Europe and is white, but from a poor country, and it's very difficult for them to get a visa to the United States. It has nothing to do with race. There are poor white countries, and there are white people in other countries that aren't predominantly white that will also have trouble getting here. These people need to separate race from reality, okay? It's like when I see look at the argument they make. It's going to hurt minority communities. Is it a joke? Okay, because it's going to hurt non-minority communities too. What's the point you're trying to make? That non-white people are more likely to be on welfare? That's an insult, okay? It's an insult to me. And it's like, these people who live in this race reality existence, whether they're the racist, the far right white nationalist types or the far left identitarian types, they all seem to have the same image in their head of not white people being poor and helpless. And that's just, there's just so much wrong with that. I grew up in a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago that was mixed. You had white people who were poor. And I'll tell you what, when the police kicked our door and came into my apartment screaming, it wasn't just white people who were there. Okay, I'm sorry, it wasn't just non-white people. It was mixed, I watched white people be brutalized by police too. That's what bothers me about this. And I think that's why I have this view, because I grew up in an area where I watched the police hassle poor white people. It was about being poor. We were poor and we got the short end of the stick. That's just the way things happen. And I have friends in countries who are white and are now struggling to come here, and this is not going to help. It's going to hurt them because there are certain countries that don't make a lot of money, that are very poor, and they're still white. And that's why it's really annoying when they're like, oh, this is racist. Oh, okay, great. Let me tell my poor white friend in Europe that their white privilege seems to be broken and they should be able to snap their fingers and come here. That's not the way things work. Trump's policy is impacting people who produce or people who can't. And look, I can be critical of it in that regard, But in the end, Trump is doing what Trump has always done. He's a Republican. He's pushing personal responsibility, and it's focusing on securing American borders. It's Republican nationalism, man. It's exactly what you'd expect. Let's read on. They say, the new rule expands the definition to include anyone who receives food stamps, Medicaid, and housing subsidies. Receipt of one or more of those designated public benefits for an aggregate 12 months within any 3-year period by any non-citizen will be considered a negative factor in determining whether or not they become a public charge. And that's not even that strict. Seriously? You for an aggregate 12 months within 3-year period? That means you can, within 3 years, be on some kind of welfare program for 11 months and they won't hold it against you. This is such absurd nonsense. It is such a minor, I can't tell you if it's minor or not, but you get 11 months? Okay, man. If you're receiving 11 months of public benefits and you're still struggling, you need something else. I don't know if deporting you or kicking you out of the country is the right response, I gotta admit. But there's a certain problem if we're bringing people into the country who can't sustain themselves after a year. So maybe the rule makes sense. And I'll stress this too. There was criticism about the Statue of Liberty, bring us, you're tired, you're poor, etc. Well, come on, man. If you're poor and you come here and we're still willing to give you 12 months of government benefits, I think we're still taking the poor. This doesn't even sound that strict. I can't imagine what the policy was before this. So, I'll leave it there. Obviously, they come out and they criticize Trump. They say Trump is trying to bring in white people. It's just not true. And it's really offensive to me when you see the rhetoric imply minorities are the ones who need help, who need government benefits, and that Trump is doing this for white people when I can't even get my white friend a visa to this country because they don't make enough money. And I mean that literally. That's literally something I've been dealing with for a while. Trying to get a friend of mine from Europe a visa to visit the United States is very difficult, and they are white. So please, drop the racism. Everybody. Okay? Because this is only going to make it harder for my friend, so I can criticize Trump for that. But this is just what Republicans do. I am not surprised by any of this. They act like this is a new thing, that Trump is racist for doing this. Oh, please. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Stick around. I got a couple more segments coming up for you in a few minutes, and I will see you shortly.